Understood.
Thank you for being our guest today, Amy. What's your
Mm,
story?
Goodness. Water swimming. It is amazing. I'll just start off with that. And what a great group of people we are together with. It's my pod, it's my people. Love it. I came about it I've always flirted with the water. So as a baby, my mom was a swimmer. She put me in the water right away. So I grew up in the pool. Um, I was a latchkey kid, and she would drop me off at the pool for practice in the morning, and I stayed for open swim and night workout, and never left the pool in the summer. I don't think that I had clothes on other than my swimsuit. So, I've always been around the water, and I swam through college. And I think most swimmers have unfinished business that they leave the pool with. And it was time for me to hang up the suit, and onward I moved. I transitioned into ocean lifeguarding. So I wasn't too far off the mark. And that's where my husband and I've known my husband since I was 10. We met in junior lifeguards.
Oh,
But
wow.
we started dating after college and when we were lifeguarding on the beaches together. So that was, kind of where I would do a 2-mile swim every year. And it was just kind of a fun little local peer-to-peer down in Manhattan Beach, from Hermosa to Manhattan Beach down in California. And just little fun things. And I competed in beach lifeguards, did the open water swimming there.
Hmm.
So I kind of have always flirted with it, but then got married, had kids, and just totally threw myself into that. And my husband's a big surfer, and we'd go surfing together. And I like surfing, but I really love body surfing a little bit more. I like being in the water.
Hmm.
You'd always tell me, it's like, you got to find something for you. And finally, my daughter's senior year in high school, a friend of mine urged me and just like kind of teased me in a way of, you say you're a swimmer, you're not going to come swimming with me, and kind of egged me on. And it was February, it was 51 degrees. And I thought of every excuse in the book, and he just called me out on every angle. And so I had no other option. I'm like, okay, I'll go. And I went. And like I said in my quick little bio, I put my toes in the water. It was shocking. I mean, I thought for sure nobody could survive this. There's no way. And then this woman next to me, who's absolutely fabulous, she's in her 70s, and she just gracefully waltzed into the water, and I'm sitting here crying with my toes, and I'm trying to lift my feet up and try to get out of the water while staying in, but it wasn't working, like kind of like a cat when you're trying to bathe a cat. And so I was like, I just couldn't figure it out. And he just dove into the water and started swimming a little bit. And I kind of creeped in and kind of got up to my shoulders and did breaststroke and tried to figure it out. And I was hysterical by this point. I couldn't even catch my breath because, you lose your cold, you lose your
Yeah.
breath. And he stopped and he took one look at me and he pointed his finger and he goes, you put your face in that water and you swim. And I'm like, oh, and it shocked me. Like, and it scared me, but I did. And, after about 50 swear words and a few a little distance, I looked up and I made it a little bit and I was still alive, and I was grateful for that. And then I put my face back in the water and was catching up to him because he had already gone off a little bit. And then my body started warming up, and I just felt everything felt alive. I've never had that feeling. I think through life you mute things so much, and you just felt so vulnerable. You're in this cold water, everything's just raw, and here you are engaging in this. So it was fantastic, and I immediately was hooked. And I came home that day, and I came home and I told my husband, I said, I found it. And he goes, what are you looking for? And I'm like, no, I found what I'm going to do. And he could not believe it. He thought I was absolutely bonkers, but loved it. And so I would bribe him to go down to Aquatic Park and watch me swim because I was a Southend member, but I didn't know anybody.
Yeah.
I would give him a Ghirardelli's chocolate sundae or a hot chocolate, and he could watch. You know how boring that is, I mean, I love being on people's swims, but like
Yeah.
just going on Aquatic Park, I don't know. So anyway, I really felt it was the most magical experience. And I couldn't think of any other way to describe it than it just was every cell in your body is alive, and you're just so in tune with your environment. And I just, yeah, it, it just, that was it. I was immediately hooked and
Love it first. Love it
start
first dip.
love it. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's just really important to challenge yourself. And I've always told my kids, you got to go out there and put yourself out there. And I was the first person that wasn't doing that until this. And now I
Yeah.
put myself out there and my kids are like, she's nuts, but we love her. And I hope that they always challenge themselves in that way, because they'll live very full, happy lives. And that's kind of where it's at. But
Yeah.
yeah, but I got into the bigger swims because I could do them. And I just thought it was really funny. I'm like this middle-aged kind of overweight woman. And, I'm like, and I could do that. I could swim from here to there. And people just thought it was really funny. And I
Yeah.
thought it was hysterical. And I would go to these swims. My husband is very athletic looking. And so we'd arrive at these swims with all our stuff. Like I went to SCAR, and then I went to the Border Buster, meant for Magog. And, I don't know that many people other than in California when I first started. And I'd arrive and they'd immediately go start talking to my husband, and he'd just point.
Just like Jesus.
and he just loves it too, because it makes him proud to be able to say, oh my gosh, Amy swam this and Amy swam that, and this is what our plans are. It's just fun.
That's
But
great.
yeah, but meeting people all over the world has been absolutely phenomenal. Just oh, just if you meet an open water swimmer, they meet you with open arms and laughs and just adventure. I just love it. No matter where we end up, it's
Yeah.
just fun.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I'm recruiting. Everybody, we want all of them to become swimmers. We want them all to help make the water clean and be happy. The world would be a happier place if we all swim, right?
Exactly. I think that that's completely true. And through this pandemic, my goodness, it's been interesting to watch in San Francisco, because our national park has remained open, whereas all the pools had closed. And during the summer months, we had a lot of pool swimmers make the transition to the open water. And it was really phenomenal watching them. And some days I would go for my workout really early, and I'd come back and I'd see a swimmer kind of on the shore, kind of in that same position that I was in few years ago. And I'd tease them into the water and just take them on a little mermaid swim around the cove and show them some neat things. And just because I think giving back is so crucial in our world. We personally invest a lot of time, but to be able to support your friend, I think you really got to help give back. It's just to be able to have other people be successful. It's a team. So I love it. I just want more people to enjoy it, and it's so fun.
Yeah. Yeah. So I heard you say you started swimming marathons because you could. So how do you describe the feeling of completing a marathon swim?
Oh my gosh. Well, I've had some interesting completions. My first marathon swim was Tahoe. I swam the length of Tahoe. And if anyone's ever done that swim, it can be extremely challenging with the altitude, the water temperature, obviously. And then there could be winds, there's other factors. And I thought I was ready, but I finished that one on sheer determination because I didn't want to do it again. And I figured it didn't really matter what I looked like at the end. I'm not going for any records. I feel so free in that way. I feel that I can just complete things. And I had a really good girlfriend come up because she just thought that was the craziest thing I was going to do. She rented a kayak and she paddled out to me. And I think I was 2 miles from the finish. And she just took one look at me, and I was swimming slowly, swimming a lot of breaststroke. You know how that, when it's looking like that's probably they're not going to finish. That's kind of I was in that mode. And she just took one look at me. And she goes, "You got to be kidding me. You could finish this." It was a perspective that I used at that moment. And I was able to creep to the finish. And I did it in a fine time. I think any time is amazing. There's always a story behind the swim. So being the first, I learned a lot. And I was grateful for that lesson, because I didn't know really how to train for my body, because
Mm.
everybody's body is different.
Yeah.
And I was following what other people had done, and that just wasn't what I needed. I needed to try something different. But when I trained for SCAR, then I figured out what my body needed. My body needs consecutive long distance training days. Like I train a lot more than some people, but it speaks to my body. And
Mhm.
you know, so it's great to talk to other swimmers to find out what their regimes are and how they get ready for big events. And I am always learning, and I always try things because I don't think that I'm completely dialed in. But once I learned how to train a little bit better for what my needs were and kind of how my recovery would go,
Mhm.
it made such a better difference. Oh my God. Then I had fun. A
Yeah.
lot more fun. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. That to, talking to other people and getting advice, it's a common recommendation for when we talk about aspiring marathon swimmers, but it's so true. Even just that, like you said, that everybody's body's different. You kind of got to try everything that everyone's done too, not be like, oh, that's not for me, because it might be.
Well, like, different feeding regimes. I've learned kind of really what works with my body, but I learned so much by trying other types of products, other like hydration balance, like things like that. And I think that it's really important that you get that dialed in. But I mean, I know so many really well accomplished swimmers that they're trying something new on a different swim just to kind of see how it goes. And I respect that. Like, like give it a go. Like what do we have to lose at this point? Like, it's good to know exactly what works perfectly, but sometimes your body does change and or conditions warrant something different. Like, I think altitude, you get dehydrated quicker. So you
Mm.
got more hydration, or if you're in warmer water, you're going to get dehydrated quicker. Like there's just certain factors.
Mhm. Yeah, there was an interesting thing when I did Tahoe too, when you're swimming overnight, that somebody was like, because I was having trouble keeping my feeds down, and it's like one of those things where someone's like, well, your body doesn't usually, you don't usually eat all night long, so it's kind of a shock to your body that you're like trying to swim and eat, like, because I didn't ever really practice just eating all night long while swimming all night long, so it took a while to become accustomed to that, but it's one of those things you don't think of training eating all night long.
That's exactly the point. Like, I think on every swim, even though you might have it nailed, like down to the minutes and, like the details, it's something like that your body will just be off. Or because it's so dark across that lake, you can't see the other side. Your
Mm, you will
equilibrium's off.
exactly.
You can't find that horizon. And then it makes you a little bit like off from
Mhm.
and then how do you get through that? And I think what's more impressive is watching people sustain some pretty amazing things that they have to overcome, like throwing up all night long and then regroup in the morning and going, all right, different day, yeah, let's go. And then getting back on it. Like,
Yeah.
that's the most impressive swimmer to me.
Yeah.
Oh, oh my God. Like, that's an accomplishment. That's why I say it doesn't really matter about time. It's the story and what
Mhm.
during the swim. And sometimes there's those swims like what happens on this swim. And then there's like, oh my God, what did we learn? Or oh my God, that was the most miraculous accomplishment. Like, I love all those,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
all the light and the dark, it's learning.
Yep. Tell us about the swim you're most proud of.
Goodness. I've got a couple of them, and for various reasons, I'll narrow it down. Um, the swim that I'm most proud of was the North Channel. I worked really, really hard and prepared, I think, the most for that particular swim. And when I finished, I felt fantastic despite like the stings and my skin dancing for 2 days. I just felt like that was it. Like, I loved the water temperature. I just prepared well. It was really, it felt, everything just went as it should have. And I was so proud of that swim. And, like, it's, all of us know that that's a very hard, challenging
Yeah.
and I just felt like, wow, that means I really could do this. Like, that was like, that really made me feel solidified in the ability to be a good marathon swimmer and prepared.
Mhm.
So I felt most like proud of that. But the other two swims that I feel were extremely important was Monterey Bay. That one's longer and colder
Mm-hmm.
and sharkier. And I had so many jellyfish stings. They looked like a cutter afterwards. It was unbelievable. I think I couldn't even count them, and I still have some remaining scars. But
Oh,
you know,
wow.
it was one of those things that was like less than a mile from shore when they were just so thick. It was like swimming through soup of jellyfish.
Oh,
And
gosh.
they finish, you know, and so like I was proud of that because like who does that? Like,
Exactly. You do.
yeah, yeah. And I was number 4, and I knew the other 3 ladies. The first swimmer, Cindy Cleveland, she was my first boss as an ocean lifeguard. And
Mm.
we used to think she was so silly. Like she would swim for hours and hours. And
There
then
you
she,
are.
here I am. And she told me way back then, she goes, you need to join me. I know this is for you. I just wasn't there mentally. So
Yeah.
I felt so accomplished and proud of that. And then the other one that I felt really proud of was the Santa Monica Bay, because not many people have done that one. And that one's 28 miles. So that was longer. And I kind of did it as more of a training swim to get ready for the North Channel because of the water temperature being warmer. But boy, that was long. And like all you girls out there that swim like super duper long distance, hats off to you. And I thank the ladies because there's less men that do it. So we're tough women. But hats off to you guys. Like that was a really good accomplishment for me. And so that distance wise, I think that's what made me proud. But I think each swim is to all of us represents something different to
Mm-hmm.
us. So um I you know, there's more to look forward to. I can't wait.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I feel the same way. Is there anything that you haven't finished that you maybe learned from?
I had my first DNF this fall. We went up to Tahoe. It was a Tahoe swim. And I had worked a few night shifts in a row. I'm a nurse, and I stayed hydrated, but I I don't think I was rested enough. And we went up there, and immediately when I got in the water, I started cramping. I've never had that before,
Oh, wow. Yeah.
like like severe cramps in my calves. So I just relaxed my legs, kicked from the hips, dragged my legs, kept my feet straight. Even I was swimming it with a friend of mine, and he kept looking at me and he's like, "What's wrong with you?" And I'm like, "I'm having severe cramps in my legs." And he's like, "Oh, that's not like you." And I'm like, "No, I don't know what's going on." So anyway, I got about 3/4 of the way, and then my hips locked up. And I'm like, "Oh, yeah." I couldn't even get onto the boat. Like it
Oh
was
my
that bad.
gosh.
And
Wow.
so I had to stop. So physically, there was something that happened.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was just lack of sleep, altitude, altitude.
That's it. I know. It always.
Not and I did. So I got a little lesson there. And um, it was just one of those things. It just wasn't my day. I've never had that happen. And I think that it was really, really important. I went back to get some more body work. It was hard, during the pandemic to get the proper body work. I think I was just malaligned. There's various factors, no excuses,
Right.
but my friend finished. He looked great up there. Oh, there was also the fire. So the air quality was terrible. The
Oh
CPI
gosh.
was like 200 plus. We
Oh.
really swam. It was really hazy. But it was like we only had that one day to do it.
Mhm.
So it's okay. It's more important that I was there and finished supporting for my friend Kirk, who finished. He did great, and we trained together often. So he thought I was joking that I had to get out. He's like, "You never quit." And I'm like, "I physically don't know if I can get in the boat, so it might be time."
Gosh.
But you know, all those things. But
Yeah.
we all have some experience that we learned from, and
Mhm.
sure, that was a good one.
Yeah. 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 Lynn was asking about Apache, the year that only 4 people made it across. Can you tell us about that?
Oh my God. Well, first of all, I honestly believe that any swimmer would have made that swim. It was rough, but we're so low profile. The
Mhm.
problem with the kayakers, they couldn't fight against the conditions.
Mhm.
Well, I took one look at my husband, and he's was really grateful to kayak for me, but I took one look at him and I said, you make it through, you make it to the end, because you'll never hear the end of this. And he's a good waterman. And so he was watching when the wind was whipping down toward the marina, down that big narrow stretch before you go up to the end. And he could see it, like there'd be just blasts and gusts of wind that would come, but it would spin off the wall. And literally my husband gave me 2 feeds to put in my suit. He said, we're not feeding for a while. And I said, I realize that. And so he put his head down and he was able to make it. And he had to get through those gusts. And we were against the cliff walls, whereas most people were in the middle and then just got blown across the lake and then they were done. So I think he was watching the water well enough that I trusted that he was guiding me the right way. And thank God he's a big surfer, so he's in good shape. Yeah. And he's sustained. Like, honestly, like if any other kayakers weren't blown off the course, every swimmer would have made it. Like I have no doubt in my mind, there's some tough cookies out there. And I was very proud of that accomplishment, because I think people are like, well, who are you? And I'm, because that was my first big swim. And then I make this crazy, like condition day. Like it was 50 knot winds. It was crazy. Mm-hmm. But like, I just like, I just thought it was funny, but we made it. And then my husband got so hypothermic at the end, we had to treat him. Yeah. As soon as we finished it, he had that letdown and I was fine. I was just like walking around in a towel and he's shaking, and then he couldn't make sense and he didn't know what he was doing. And we lost his pants. Like, that's how bad it was. We had to strip him and kind of get him dried off. Like, he was bad.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was a great effort on his part, but I made it because of him.
Yeah, it's a good team.
And I had Joe Zamatis, he jumped back. He lost his kayaker and he came back, jumped back in the water and swam to the end with me. Oh, wow. And so technically it wasn't a completion, but he could do it. But he had been on the boat for a little bit, jumped back in the water to swim with me. And I just gave him some of my feeds and we made it. Like, so I know every swimmer could have made it. It was just too hard for those kayakers. Yeah. Ridiculous. Yeah.
How do you adapt when things get rough out there in the middle?
I like really rough water. I like really strong current. Like, I feel when I have the most tension on the water with it, I feel more in control, if that makes sense. So, and I train up in San Francisco where we have those currents, so we can practice a lot in rough conditions. So I feel like that's an advantage for me. Like, I'm not a pool swimmer where if I get splashed or there's a wind ripple on the water, it's going to throw me off. And I don't disrespect those swimmers. It's just how they have to train. So when they get into the open water, they have a lot more to overcome. So I have more respect for them, but I'm exposed to these elements. So I speak to them and so it doesn't bother me. But when something starts going awry, I think my first instinct is I've got to trust who's in the position of making the decisions. And so I really, before I go on any adventure, like with even my friends who I know we make stupid choices sometimes, like to go swimming in the craziest stuff, I trust them. Like, I know they're going to make it. I know they're not going to put me at risk. I know they're not going to put themselves at risk. And, or if we have to get out of the water, it's a non-issue. You just get out. Like, it's important that you trust who's with you. Mm-hmm. And yeah, you make a pact when you get in the water together, and then you got to just make it work together. And then when it goes crazy, you just got to make the safest choice and get out and move on. But it's so you don't know how crazy things what you can tolerate without trying. So I kind of push it. I've had some really fun, crazy swims. And,
tell us a story about a fun, crazy swim.
Well, it involved, two of them involved Linton from Australia. So Linton came to San Francisco and we decided to do a Bay Bridge to Golden Gate Bridge. And it was on a very windy, very big surf day. And the way the surf was coming in, to San Francisco, it was breaking at Fort Point, which is right under the Golden Gate Bridge, and a big wave, not like a little wave, like I'd say about 8 to 10 foot wave, so it
Wow.
was large swell. So it was a very big ebb. So we had really big current. So the swim was going to it's a 10-mile swim, but it's current assist. So despite being rough and bumpy in certain spots, the 10-mile, the 6-mile swim, 10K, took an hour and 40 minutes. That's how fast we were going. Yeah, like we were flying. But, again, it was the conditions that were what we were training for. Like we were going for these specific conditions. So at one point we were swimming, and it was so rough near Alcatraz Island that we just tucked closer. So we actually touched the island, and then we went toward the Golden Gate Bridge. Well, the current was pushing us literally into the South Tower. And I looked at Linton, and it was sucking and surging. So like the elevation of the wave was going at least 15 feet on the tower.
Wow.
And we were getting pushed right into that. And I looked at Linton and I said, he goes, I said, I'm scared. And he goes, you're scared now? Because he's been terrified this whole swim because it was rough and crazy and windy. And I said, we need to sprint. And so we sprinted so hard, and we made it around the north part of the South Tower, whereas our friend got sucked to the south, literally almost got plastered on the tower like I thought we were going to be.
Oh my gosh.
And so he just couldn't break that current. And so he had to go with it. And he didn't panic. He just went and just swam hard to make sure that he wasn't going to get like a hood or an ornament against the tower. But that was a crazy one. And we were all laughing afterwards when we were coming in on the boat, because we loaded up after we got under the bridge. We were surfing the waves through the Golden Gate Bridge. It was unbelievable. And it was a 26-foot long boat, and we were still in the waves, like surfing into San Francisco.
Wow.
So it was really big. And we still talk about that to this day. We're like, that was terrifying, but fun. But we also knew that when we had to put the burners on, we could do it. And he swims a lot in surf, but not wind. So he needed that wind because he was getting ready for North Channel, and he didn't know what conditions he was going to get. So he definitely pushed it there. And that was super fun. And we still laugh and talk about it. Yeah. Any of the training that we do at Hit the Wall in Ireland, super fun. They do some crazy fun things. That's like a 10-hour swim in 10-degree water. Like, who does that in May? But we make it fun, like I said to the group of us there, we all kind of were like, oh, well, let's just make it fun. So the last time we went 2 years ago, I said, let's tell each other dirty jokes to get through. Well, Susan Knight, she's got some good ones. So we kept telling dirty jokes at each stop, and we would come back to each other, but we all worked together. Like, there'd be some grumpy points that a swimmer would have to get through. And at the end, one of the swimmers, he was really hypothermic, and we waited for him, and I physically helped carry him out of the water. Well, he made that channel that year. And he goes, I made it because I knew you believed in me, because we all would check in on him. And he in his mind had to make that 10-hour qualifier. And we all knew he could make the North Channel after that. And like, that's what's so exciting, is like, it might be crazy, but if you work together, you could get through it. It may not be fun. Like, training's not fun, but we all have to kind of put in our work.
Yeah. Yep.
But you can make it kind of fun. Like, right now we've a group of swimmers, we're all different speeds. So we have a game. We catch one of our swimmers, we let him go. And when we get to him, then we have to do like stroke work or something like that. But so we make it fun, just so we can all stay together and support one another.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that you have a pod of people that all want to swim a long way. That's great.
I feel very lucky, because I know other people in other places don't have that. And I don't know what I would do if I didn't have that, because I know when I go by myself, it takes a bit more mind prep and confidence. It's hard to stick to your game plan. Like, you're like, oh, I got 2 hours today. Well, an hour and a half is good. How about an hour man.
How do you
that
read
cup
my
of
mind?
coffee. God, I could really use a cup of coffee right now. Yeah, I I think that actually the stronger swimmers mentally are the ones that have to do it themselves and pull it from the inside. I feel like I have it easier. I'm lucky, and I'm inclusive. Like anybody is welcome to join us. Like people of all levels and abilities. We don't care. Like you could turn around as long as we know that you're safe to go back to where we started. You could totally join us. Like we're not in a position of saying, oh no. And we're not fast. Like we really, really want to encourage everybody. So,
Mm-hmm.
and like
Mm-hmm.
we stage it so that we all kind of catch up together, which is nice.
Yeah, that's great. Has your swim technique evolved since you started marathon swimming?
Um,
Just having been a
I,
like college swimmer and all that stuff.
I, I frequently have to work on my stroke, and I had surgery last year. I'd fallen. I had to get a little surgery on my shoulder. So any shoulder work is always kind of challenging. Um, I just try to keep my stroke as efficient as I can. I mean, unfortunately, body size impacts kind of your flow through the water. And right now, I've got my bioprene for my next swim on, and maybe COVID-19. I'm not sure. Who knows? But anyway, so I feel like I'm a little slower right now, but I don't think that that's a disadvantage. I can tolerate cold just as easily. But I try to really make sure that I'm working efficiently, so I'm not putting too much strain on those shoulders, because these are our business.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. They carry us through.
they totally do, and we carry a lot on them.
Yes,
Outside
yeah,
of the water.
yeah, yes, indeed.
Yeah.
How has the pandemic been for you?
Oh boy. Well, I'm a pediatric critical care, congenital cardiac, and a neonatal intensive care nurse. So, and also I do house supervisor for UCSF, which is a very large hospital. It's been crazy. So I have not had a mental or emotional break. So getting in the water for me is my grounding force. It's important. It's my health, my sanity, my religion. Um, and I just can't believe a lot of other people had to be without this for so long. And I just feel so sad for them, because that must have been very difficult. I know everybody's made it through, but now we got this other wave. We don't know what's happening. Things are shutting down again. Um, so I think my outside through the pandemic is equally as stressful. So it's nice to have the grounding force of the water. I need it. And I even have a note from my doctor that I keep in my car. And I have a note from the hospital that I get permission to travel into San Francisco to swim,
Wow.
because they know it's my mental health. So, yeah, so I feel like, I mean, if somebody stops me, I can at least justify it, but it's hard, when things close down. I don't want to be the privileged one, but boy, I'm working hard outside of the water. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to save lives. So it's one of those things.
Yeah. Thank you for the work you do. My goodness.
Yeah.
What motivates you to keep going?
Boy, what motivates me to keep going are the kids that I take care of. Kids are amazing, and they're so simplistic in how they view things. There's one kid that I'm taking care of right now. She's literally waiting a heart and a kidney transplant, and she's on an external device that's her heart.
Wow.
And she has the most incredible insight. She's 6. She's 6 years old, and oh my God, she I told her I was a mermaid, and she's extremely pragmatic, and she's like, no, you're not. Well, I've fully convinced her that I am. I've shared photos. Thank you, all of you who've given me videos and photos. She thinks Jamie Monahan is the most beautiful Iceland swimmer. No, Iceland swimmer, because she doesn't understand Greenland's colder than Iceland. And I showed her that picture of Jamie on, swimming up in the Arctic Circle. And I told her that she was the royal party from Iceland, and she goes, can I see her again? And she loves it. And then Christopher Draff has been doing these mermaid videos in Lake Walden.
Mhm.
And I show them to her and she is just captivated. So I show her pictures of us swimming in San Francisco and she's like, well, why do you look like a person? And I said, well, the fishermen would catch us. We have to for swimmers. And she is just like, she'll shush me sometimes if she sees somebody listening. She's like, we can't let our secret get out. And, so that motivates me to keep going. And like, if you look at your hand and it makes an M mark with the lines, that's a sign that you are a mermaid in your past life. And so it's little things like that. Like, so for her to fight every day to stay alive, and I'm complaining because I'm chafing for like a mile, or the water might be a little cold, or, my idea might not come together. Like, it's so insignificant compared to what she has to struggle through. So if I could fight through to honor and respect her, then I do it.
Yeah.
And there's been many others that have spoken to me that way, but it just kind of, she's my mermaid friend. And so she's the first one that really talks mermaids with me all the time and wants to hear stories. So if anybody's got a good mermaid story, send it my way.
I love it.
I make them up on a quick minute, but yeah. And they involve whales and turtles and shell phones. She doesn't understand that shell phones don't take photos. But she wants me to bring a shell phone. So I brought a shell in the water and I put it in the water. I'm like, well, you can't hear it unless you're in the water. Thank goodness she's a little gullible. But yeah.
Oh man. Well, that's awesome. You're giving her things to look forward to. That's fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think that when we go to that 18th mile spot and you're in that dark spot, you got to find some light.
Yeah.
You got to twist it. And so trying to find something to speak to you to get you through that is really important.
Yeah.
So I practice that. And then I just try that on myself when I'm in that mode. So
that's great advice. What other advice would you give to an aspiring marathon swimmer?
Oh boy. My advice is to try it. I don't care how crazy it is. We're all going to indulge you. And we're all going to think it's absolutely bonkers, but go for it. Because like we learn so much, like just admiration, and we learn what our bodies are capable of by people pushing it. So why not? Like, I think a failure sometimes is equally as successful. So why not just put yourself out there and give it a go? I think that that's what makes me most proud, is when somebody just pushes and just gives it a go. So my advice is just to go for it. It might be crazy. It could be around a buoy, for God's sakes, but get out there and just try it,
Excellent advice. What marathon swimmer has inspired you?
Oh my gosh. Well, I grew up with Cindy Cleveland, and I really was unaware of her pioneering a lot of the sport in the Southern California area. And I grew up with John York. My husband actually in his teens would paddle for them on a long prone paddleboard for safety for the swims. So he's been helping out with marathon swims for many years. And his father used to help crew for Lynn Cox because he was a Long Beach lifeguard. So I was aware of Lynn Cox as well. But again, like just she's so unassuming and just so humble that, like, what an amazing woman to represent our sport. I am absolutely in love with everybody that's out there. Sarah, Jamie, Caroline, I could just rattle off the list. You all are amazing because of your humble approach, and just you don't appear at all to have airs, and you're willing to talk to people and encourage people. If that's what we give back and that's the image we portray, awesome. I mean, our competitive days in the pool, I am so glad to be over with those because your teammates are your enemy the next day, in the water. Whereas here it's kind of fun. Like, it's like, oh, you're going to do that swim? Wow. Awesome. Like nothing but encouragement. I just love that. So I draw a lot of I don't know, a lot of strength from people. And I trained a lot with Cameron Bellamy. He came to San Francisco because we swam Gibraltar together.
Oh, cool.
And I beat him by a second. So that's my claim to fame. I beat him up on the rock because I didn't want him to beat me. I'm like, if he's gorgeous, I'm going to be a fat old lady. I'm going to get up that rock quicker than he did. And I did. but he just, his determination, he's also an amazing spokesman and testimony. Yeah, we're so lucky to be surrounded by amazing people.
Yeah.
Good-hearted people.
Right. Yeah. And it's interesting. You're making me think of just like the way you were talking about beating him by a second. So it's like your competitive days, they're not behind you, but it's more like we're competing and pushing our limits. It's like it's different than when you're on the block and you're like, who's going to execute the perfect flip turn and who's going to, touch the pad first. So, but I don't know. It's interesting because I see myself go through those things too. Like, oh, I'm not competitive. But then like I was talking to Sue Phillips last week and we were playing leapfrog in Massawippi last year. And it kept me going, so
that's true. That's true.
And seeing somebody do a swim, a friend is doing something and you support and encourage them, but you're like, maybe I could do that too, like there's just, but it's like it's the limit pushing, but it's all good. It's all good limit pushing, knowing yourself better, right?
Exactly. Knowing yourself better. And also like by you pushing, then that person steps it up a notch too. And so you're bringing out the best in each other.
Right.
And that's what's more incredible to celebrate is that I love that. Like, you're right. Amy Frick and I had Scar together, and I swear to God, we were neck and neck the whole time. The whole time I would just look at them. It was so funny because we're both Amy's. And of course she'd go ahead and I had to catch her. And then I'd go ahead and then she had to catch me. So I get it. I mean, I am competitive, but I just think it's in a different way of more inclusiveness, not so like, what's my advantage over you?
Right. It's definitely, the mentality is different, but I think it's like a productive use of that competitive nature, like versus it being just this, like, how many hundredths of a second can I beat you by?
Correct. Yeah.
Not that there's anything wrong with the people that want to compete in that way. I just like the openness and the, the airiness of the open water swimming and marathon swimming. So
yeah, I think Phil White coined it perfectly. No lanes, no lines, no limits.
Yeah.
I love that. That's just exactly what resonates.
Yep.
But just funny that we can swim from one place to another. I just love that.
I know, me too. That's anytime I'm talking to a new swimmer or whatever, and they're just getting started, that's like that feeling. I'll never forget that feeling of like swimming across a lake and someone being like, oh, where'd you swim from? You're like, oh, the other side, and it was only like 5 miles long, but it's an amazing feeling.
Yeah. It's a big deal. It's a totally big deal. It is. It's true. People, I think a lot of people are not comfortable in the water. Is the bottom line, or just don't feel that they are efficient in the water. And I effortlessly swim. Like, I just think there's no effort when I swim.
Yeah.
Walking sometimes is more effort. So people don't understand that.
I know. It's the gravity. Gravity is tough.
Totally. I know. It's tough. It's true.
Yeah, but I tell people that too. Like when people are like, "Oh my God, how could you swim that far?" I'm like, it's a lot more like, like I get that it's hard for some people, but for me, it's like walking, but easier. But I'm with you that it's easier without the gravity.
True. It's so true. Yeah. I think that if I had to walk 22 miles, I could do it for sure. But I think I would probably be a lot more sore than when I get out from a marathon swim. Yeah, exactly. I'm just more tired.
Oh, thank you so much for being our guest today, Amy. It's been so fun to talk to you.
Yeah, well, it was great. Thank you so much. And I wish everybody a great 2021. Let's see some really cool swims. I know. Let's do it.
All right, you guys have a good week. We'll talk to you next week. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.